Marc Schroeder, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations podcast.
John, thank you very much for having me today.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I'm excited to have this conversation. It's morning here in sunny Utah, and it's evening there in Munich. It's always fun to have a nice international conversation and collaboration on these sorts of topics. And it was fun chatting with you in the pre-interview, just getting to know you a little bit more. And based normally out of San Francisco and splitting your time between Munich and San Francisco for work pre-COVID. Now, of course, everything is remote, and it's been about a year since you've seen your team. So I imagine there will be a nice conversation, a part of our conversation that can go into how do we go about managing and leading and building dynamic teams, even in a virtual world, since that's what you're living and what your company's living. And but more broadly, we'll talk about leading and building teams for success more generally. Before we get started with the conversation, I did want to share Marc's bio with everybody. Marc Schroeder is the co-founder and managing partner at MGV, Mastermeyer Group Ventures, where he focuses on working with world-class entrepreneurs in technology. Marc's main focus is the founding team, and as a result does not have strict requirements for traction revenue or industry. Early in his career, Marc founded a successful HR and staffing company that operated throughout Germany. He then became head of global sales at Mastermeyer Group, and if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize.
It's a tricky name.
How do you pronounce it?
Maschmeyer. Yeah.
Oh,
exactly
I was close.
How you did it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were close.
And most recently was investor at C+ Speed Ventures. Marc is a member of the Kauffman Fellows and co-chair of the Bay Area chapter. He's also co-founder of InsurTech Symposium, an exclusive invite-only event which brings together industry leaders from all over the world to discuss the huge changes taking place in the insurance industry. Marc is originally from the Netherlands, grew up in Cape Town, South Africa, and graduated with a law degree from Bertolt Brecht University, and I probably said that wrong.
Wow, that was done really well. You pronounced it exactly right. But I never saw the inside of a courtroom. I want to add
that. Marc constantly travels between his offices in San Francisco and Munich. In his free time, he enjoys running, rugby, skiing, lifting weights, reading, traveling, and especially spending time with his family. And I have to say, rugby, that is quite the sport. All of these pansies over in the US playing football with pads,
Pads and standing around most of the time, if I might add.
Yeah, like 85% of the time is just dead time, right? Rugby's quite the sport. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I love it. It's a phenomenal team sport, and I love which actually is a great part of this topic. It's the character behind it, right? If I don't know if you're familiar with soccer here in Europe, you've got all the hooligans around. It's always a clash in every single game, and with rugby that doesn't exist, right? The different teams, fans sit next to each other, and there's never an argument whatsoever. We call it a gentleman's sport played by hooligans.
Yeah, that's great. I've never been to a rugby match. I do enjoy soccer. The university here, I'm a professor at the university as well as doing consulting work, and the university has wonderful women's and men's soccer teams. And it's a lot of fun to take the kids and go watch those matches. I've never been to a rugby match though I've watched a bit on TV, and it looks intense.
Well, yeah, but I played American football once as well. And if you come from rugby and then go into American football, it's a total different world. I was not used to being able to get tackled without having the ball in hand. So that came as a bit of a surprise. And since you have pads, you actually dive in harder than we do.
That makes sense. Well, and I know you're truly an international man. Originally from the Netherlands, growing up in Cape Town, South Africa, living in Munich, traveling back and forth to San Francisco. I love that. I love the international flavor and perspective that you can bring to such an important topic as, developing, building, and leading dynamic and successful teams. That's not easy to do, even when you have kind of everyone with a similar mindset, more or less on the same page, that can be a really challenging thing to do. And so doing it when you have a dispersed international team can even be more of a challenge at times, depending on how you handle it. So I'm really excited to learn about how you built your team there at MGV, and some of the things that you've been doing, especially this last year, just trying to deal with the pandemic and how you've been able to successfully move forward. So let's start with MGV. That's one of your main responsibilities there,
Yeah.
in terms of the founding team and putting, you know, the human capital element of the organization, and pulling that together. So what has been your approach as you started to tackle that when you were starting the organization?
Well, when I came to the US in 2000, November of 2016, you know, we have 3 investment vehicles here in Europe, and we decided we wanted to be part of the US venture capital scene. But we didn't want to be tourists. So we wanted to have actual boots on the ground and an office on the ground. And when I came there in November of 2016, I'll never forget, I sat on a bench next to the ferry building of San Francisco, looking at it, and to the right was the city. And I literally asked myself, what the hell am I doing here? I don't know a single person. I literally didn't know anybody in San Francisco. And so I started to reflect, like, what is going to be my personal goal out of this? What is my vision? And how do I get there? And it always comes down to people in your life, right? So through Kaufman Fellows, I was fortunate that in September 2 years ago, we were at an event in Santa Cruz, and the owner of the hotel that we all stayed up, he went on stage and he talked about his life and experience. And he said one sentence that has stuck with me ever since. He said, when you look back at your life, it's not going to be about the watch. It's not going to be about the car. It's not going to be about the house. It's going to be about the people that touched your life, right? It's going to be about your wife, your children, your grandchildren, the people that were close to you, that influenced you in a certain way. And that really translated to team as well. So accomplishing anything that I wanted for myself and for the fund moving forward, the whole basis of it is the team that you choose. And there, for me, you know, everybody's different. And there, I mean, you know this way better than I do, but there's so many different principles out there, so many different guidelines, and so many different opinions. You need to find what works best for you, for your personal character and persona. And I try to learn from the failures that I had in my life, the mistakes that I made with building up my own startup, which was based all around people, right? I was matching students with really cool part-time jobs, so only dealing with people the whole time, and try to mold that and make the best out of it in the United States. And one of the most important things there was hire people that are smarter than you in many different areas, right? If you look at my team, they all have what I call their zone of genius in one specific field, right? Which means they are smarter and better and more knowledgeable than me in one area. That is one thing that's important, because only if you do that, you can collectively move forward, right? If I hire people that are underneath me, so to speak, then how am I going to evolve? How is MGV going to evolve? How are we going to move forward? The second one was that.
Can I just comment on that real quick
Yeah.
before you move on to the second one? I mean, that point is super important. And it may sound basic, it may sound obvious, but I'll tell you, in my experience, most leaders aren't secure enough in themselves and their own leadership to be able to do that, to be able to surround themselves with people who have expertise and abilities that may even surpass them in certain areas. They feel insecure, they feel nervous and protective, right? And so what often ends up happening, whether leaders intend to do this or if it just kind of happens by default, given kind of human nature and our protective kind of strategies, but what ends up often happening is you try to consolidate power and you try to then hoist yourself up and maintain your position and your power. And that often means you end up surrounding yourself with sycophants and yes men and people
Exactly.
who are capable but are just kind of do what you tell them to do. And that's a true recipe for failure. If you
100%.
and so what you were describing is the exact opposite of that. It's embracing um, the expertise of those around you, putting together a team, a dynamic team, where everyone has their unique. The way you said it was beautiful. Everyone has their unique specialty, their unique expertise and competency that they bring to the table. Some of which you have, but others of which you may not have much of at all. But together you complement each other in those skills and competencies and capabilities, and then you stretch and push each other, and you grow together. And
Exactly.
as a leader, that's what it means in my mind. That's what it means to be a leader, is to help everyone achieve their greatest potential, and that in turn helps the organization achieve its greatest potential. So if you want to move the organization forward, you move your people forward, and you do that by investing in them and surrounding yourself and others with great people, right?
Well, I couldn't agree more with that. And if I translate it to my line of work, we invest in founders first and foremost. And one of the greatest founders that we have in our portfolio is Alison Friedenson-Watson, the founder of Modern Health, just reached unicorn status. She was the fastest female ever in the United States to reach that status within 3 years. And what really defines her is that she is not only a strong personality, not only very charismatic, knows how to motivate and lead people, but especially can let go. Exactly what you described, meaning she knows exactly what her strengths are, but she also knows exactly what her weaknesses are, and has the character, as you just pointed out, to hire the top tier people around her that will fill those shoes and then drive the entire company forward. And I love the other point that you made, because that's the second principle that I had as well, is that, once they're there, you need to make them so good that they can start anywhere, right? You make your team members so good they can start in any other job anywhere, and everybody would love to have them. But you need to make them so happy and proud that they want to stay, right? That's then your job as a leader as well. So once you actually find those people, and I mean, I looked at a lot, right? I looked at 200 CVs. I narrowed it down to 75, narrowed it down to 35, narrowed it down to 10. I went hiking with them. I went to dinner with them and their spouses. I went to a baseball game, first baseball game I ever went to. And the whole point was the third part of it, do they fit together, right? It does. You need people that are better than you are in many different facets, but they need to be different as well. So you can't have 4 people that have exactly the same 4 strengths. They need 4 different strengths. But most importantly, especially now in the remote work world that you just mentioned as well, is they need to fit together, right? It has to be a team, right? Together, everyone achieves more, meaning the chemistry must work. And that's why we ran through that process, that loop of hiking, dinner, and baseball game, to see who really fits most best together as well. And
can I add to that? So what I hear you saying and what I hear you not saying is important. So you're talking about the ability for people to work together well, and oftentimes in the people space, an organization might talk about fit. Do they fit with each other? Do they fit with the organization? And I have no problem with the idea of fit. Sometimes it gets perverted though. So
yeah,
unfortunately, sometimes people say they're hiring for fit, or you don't fit anymore, and so we're letting you go. And they use that as a cover, really, to just say, we want everyone to be the same. You don't look like us, you don't act like us, you don't talk like us, you don't think like us, and therefore you don't fit. That's not what we're talking about at all.
no,
That's not
not
what
at
you're
all.
describing. And so you're talking about compatibility, right? And
Yeah,
synergies, and the ability to leverage differing capacities and capabilities. And that's a very different type of thing. That does require, a measure of fit, and seeing that people can work together. But if you're just looking for a homogenous type of team, you're going to be setting yourself up for, not innovating and not being terribly creative, and probably in the long term, you're going to lag in terms of competitive advantage.
I couldn't agree more. And if you look at our team, we could not be more diverse. Not, and especially also in character, right? We have introverts, we have extroverts. If you get to know me, I'm like I'm a super extrovert. I'm a people person. I want to be out there, meet people. Corona was horrible for me. I got used to Zoom, but still, it's not the same. And then we have others on our team that are very introverted, right? But we all still I call ourselves, they're the family next to my own family, right? And that again comes to leadership, is that you create a atmosphere and a culture that everybody is aligned on the vision that we have set together, and we move forward there together. And a lot of people ask me, how do you deal with competitiveness within a team, etc. And if I look here in Germany, you have a lot of single great racehorses, but they are just single great racehorses. They're not a united team moving forward. And with us, it's really, we have one vision, and no matter what, everybody works together for that one goal. So in our world, venture capital, it's mostly about who found the deal and who led the deal. And, that is the most important part. But we took that element out and we said, everybody has one vote, meaning it really doesn't matter what your title is. You can be a junior associate, you can be me, the managing partner. It really doesn't matter. Everybody has one single vote, and we either all vote for this founder or we don't do the deal, period. Right? You bring each other up to one level, everybody's voice is heard, and all the different opinions and mindsets and views of a certain topic then all fall into one place. And then I believe that is truly our strength, and that has made us to where we are right now, three years forward, having done 27 deals, and the success rate that we've proven out so far.
Yeah, and you never have a crystal ball, and so I imagine there could be deals that you didn't make that in retrospect you look back and you're like, oh, that was a missed opportunity.
100%.
But I would say in the aggregate, as you take that kind of an approach and you're leaning on these diverse areas of expertise, and trying to create that kind of collective decision making, I think it's going to lead to far better overall outcomes. And you're probably going to end up sidestepping for every one, missed opportunity. You're probably sidestepping, 2 or 3 or 4 other landmines that otherwise you might have found yourself in the middle of.
If you make it about the people, and then make it about the founders, then missing out on a great deal, which we've done because of the way we look at things, that is totally fine, right? If you really make it about investing in the founder, meaning, is this the person that you genuinely believe is able to lead a team, to motivate a team, to hire the right people, to retain the right people, to be able, to deal with all those pressures being a founder? I mean, that's probably one of the hardest jobs in the world that you can have. Is this person, what you said before, able to let go, or is this the person that is going to sit in the office and the queue is in front of the office, meaning he or she cannot let go, right? So you're truly believing in her, because markets change, global pandemics happen, customer behavior change. You'll need to adapt your product, but the founder will stay. And we built that human element into our process, that the last question we ask, and that also counts for new team members, is, would I introduce this person to my family, and would I let her into my home? Yes or no? Right? So we really make it on a personal level, and we've said no to deals that have become great and actually went on to become unicorn status, because we answered that question with no. And we still, your anti-portfolio still speaks for you. You saw the deal, but you decided against it. So it's okay. That's fine. You got to live by your principles.
Yeah. I think that's right. And as soon as you start making, cutting corners around your principles and starting to make exceptions and justifications for things that are contrary to your core values, then it's very easy to quickly kind of have scope creep, right? And you end up doing things that you never would have intended doing, and you end up chasing things that probably aren't as important. And so again, in the short term, maybe there's some opportunities missed, but I think in the long term, what you're describing seems like a really sustainable, healthy approach to how you go about making those decisions and involving everyone in the process. So we only have a few more minutes, but I did want to give you a chance to share a little bit with listeners how you've been doing all of this now this past year amidst COVID. Typically you had office space in San Francisco. Now everyone's remote and scattered all over the place. How have you been able to make that work?
We were very fortunate from the start, as you mentioned before, that I travel back and forth, right? So before COVID, half of my life was in San Francisco. The other half was with my family here in Munich. So we were set up remotely from the start, so it didn't hit us that bad. What happened though was communication, the normal chit chat that we had in the office, right? Our deal flow meeting, for example, on Tuesdays, we sat in the lounge, we had breakfast together, coffee, and we just talked about the deals for hours. We missed that, or our lunches, our dinners, our one-on-one meetings, etc. So we had to find a way that we keep in touch throughout all the different time zones, keep the morale up, and everybody aligned on the same page and moving forward. And how we did that was we tried to imitate the one-on-one meetings that we had live face-to-face in our office in San Francisco. We did that over Zoom. So on Monday mornings, every Monday morning, we all get together and we just talk personal, meaning we do a stand-up and we just talk our personal highs and lows over the weekend, right? What do we do? How did it make us feel, etc. After that, we look forward to the week and we decide, okay, what are our main goals for the week? What do we want to achieve? And how do we believe that we can get there? Tuesdays, we still do our deal flow meetings. We spend 4 hours on Zoom just going through all the deals that we've seen and just have a general conversation about it. Wednesdays, my most important day is our one-on-ones, meaning I talk individual with every single team member, and that's a very private conversation. I open up first, tell them something out of my life, and then they open up, and then it's kept secret. It's just between me and that one person. And on Thursdays, we've booked a slot where anybody can just book an appointment, meaning a founder meeting, or we talk about a deal, etc. And on Friday is my favorite, is actually we look back at the entire week. What did we achieve, set out to achieve? Did we achieve it? Why didn't we achieve it? And what can we do better? What did we like? And what are we going to do on the weekend, right? Then end with the personal note again. We've done that rigorously throughout. And it's worked really well. We did cancel our lunches because it ended up, was like 10 p.m. my time, 1 p.m. Their time. So I couldn't eat another dinner. So it ended up just being a conversation. So we switched it around to being earlier. But generally touching base every time and every day. And I think to finalize it is, if it's not work for you, if it's your passion, and if you generally love the people that you work with and you see them as an extension to your family, you just don't stop. We actually had difficulty last year of letting go, of shutting the computer off, of shutting down the cellular device that we all love so much here. We Zoom on the weekends, we FaceTime on the weekends, and we just stay in touch. So it's not a must, it's we want. And I think that comes to the generally culture that you build together as a team.
There's so much there that I love. I love the interpersonal connections, the relationships that are clearly genuine and being developed. I love the attention to not only, the business side of those relationships, but the personal element, and that you make a real point and are committed to consistently making sure that you have those touch points, those personal touch points, and not just like at one point in time, but like throughout the week. I think that's wonderful, and it really shows your people that you care. And so you've said several times today, that they're like an extension of your family. You care for them, you love them, just like you care for your wife or your kids. And I think that's a really important thing to understand. With the people on my team that I lead now, obviously, I think of when I say they're an extension of my family, I will do literally anything for
Yeah.
my wife and my children. And it is a little different with the people I work with, but I genuinely care for
Yeah.
them. I genuinely want them to succeed. I want for their well-being. I want for their success. And so, I think this is absolutely, while, in Western culture, sometimes a little bit taboo to talk about this kind of caring
Yeah.
and loving and personal attention. I think it can be very, very valuable, and people appreciate that kind of genuine
It
connection.
has to be authentic, right? It has to be part of yourself as well. You must live that, right? And you really must bring empathy. And when I say empathy, I don't mean sympathy, right? You really need to let your people know that they're heard and that their opinion matters and that they're listened to. And always, we live in such a digital world, writing hundreds of emails, text messages, Twitter, and all that. Sometimes we forget there's a other human being on the other side that has its own hopes and dreams and desires and fears. And you got, if you want to be a team, you need to really listen to them all and try, and as a leader, then try to make it work together, right? Make it match together.
Yeah, and everyone has their ebbs and flows and ups and
Yeah.
downs, right? I love, when you guys come in together on Mondays, and that's one of the things you talk about. I think that's wonderful, and it models for your people when you start out and share something that was great about your weekend, maybe something that wasn't so great. A lot of times, especially with social media, you kind of get this false picture of
Yeah.
like someone's life is glamour and wonderful all the time. Nobody lives like that for
Yeah.
real. Everyone has ups and downs. I feel like I have a pretty privileged, blessed life, but I have
Yeah.
my ups and downs. I've had a overall pretty good week this week, but I had a pretty downer, couple of days at the beginning of the week. And fortunately, things have, that's the way it is for everybody,
Yeah.
right? There's ebbs and flows in life circumstances, in just our mood, in all of that kind of stuff. And so when we can just genuinely connect with people, show them that we genuinely care, and like you said, authentic empathy with your people, and listen and help them to feel heard, that goes a really, really long way. And to your point, you can do that virtually, just like you can do it in the office space. It can be a little harder because it doesn't happen organically virtually. You have to like
Yeah.
schedule it.
Exactly. It
But
becomes
as long
planned.
as long as you are thoughtful about how to structure that, you can still do it. And I think your example is wonderful. Well, Marc, it has been a real pleasure. We could go
Same.
on and on and on.
Yeah, for
And
hours.
but I am mindful of the time, and it's evening for you, so I'm going to let you go. But before we close today, I did want to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can find out more about you, your organization, and anything else you would like to share by way of kind of closing comments for this episode.
Well, I think first getting back to the last half hour that we spent, and thank you very much, John, for having me on. I generally believe we could go for hours and hours on this, but if you summarize it all up, being in a leadership role in a team, it really, for me, it comes down to three basic principles, which is listen deeply, unite widely, and act boldly. And if anybody wants to talk more about that to me or to my team, or if you're a founder and you're interested in learning how MGV can help you, and just go to our website, mgv.vc, or write me an email at marc with a C at mgv.vc, and I'll look forward to that.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Marc. It has been a real pleasure. I encourage listeners to reach out, get connected, check out Marc on LinkedIn, check out his company, see if there's anything that they might be able to do for you to help you and your organization. And even if it's just, shooting the breeze and getting to know each other a little bit and seeing how you might be able to network and connect with each other, I think that's also very valuable.
Would be lovely.
As always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.